Welcome in, everybody. All right. To start using the chat and tell us where you are calling in from, your name, what type of practice setting you're in, any other fun facts or details you'd like for folks to know about you. And feel free to turn your cameras on if you are available. These calls are designed to be interactive and networking, and just an opportunity for us to all put faces to names, get to know each other. I'll give it just a minute or two for more people to keep trickling in.
Veronica, if you were talking, I think you're on mute, unless I
know.
You.
I just realized that. Thank you for telling me. We're home on a snow day, so I'm trying to mute myself as often as possible since there's a lot going on. No, it's really fun to see that people are posting what they're working on or the practice that they're currently in. Like, that's really fun to see what people are working on.
Absolutely.
Denton, Texas, that's close to me.
Where are you at?
I'm in Sherman.
Oh, yeah. When you said snow day, I'm like, same.
More like ice. We have 2 inches of ice and nothing has
Yeah.
melted off. It's bananas.
Yeah,
Hope you guys are safe and warm.
I tried going into the pharmacy yesterday and I was shaking and I was like, nope. I ended up turning around. I'm like, this isn't worth it.
I would agree. It's really bad out there.
Kelly, I'm in the Moms Collective podcast group with you. So it's like, this is a really small world that's all intersecting.
I recognize your
love
name. Awesome.
So cool. Okay, well, we're at 5 minutes after, and we've got 20 people on the call today, so I'm super excited. We've got such a great group. I am going to turn it over to Veronica to go ahead and open up the call and get us centered and take it from there. And then I'll just share a few more updates and things at the end of the call. So.
All right. Thank you, Lauren. I'm really excited that you guys are all here with us, starting out the first call of the year. And we'll just start first by grounding and centering ourselves. We start every call with some breath work just to help us get centered. And if it's new to you, then it's something that you can learn that you can bring to your patients. And we'll take just a moment and we'll sit up nice and tall. Let your feet rest flat on the floor. If that's able, if you're driving, please don't do this with us. Please focus on the road and be safe. And you can let your hands rest comfortably in your lap and then take just a moment to scan your body and notice how you feel. Notice if there's anything your body has to say. And notice where your breath moves in the chest And now let's all draw a big breath in through the nose. And then let a big sigh out through the mouth. Draw a big breath in through the nose. And let a big sigh out. One more big breath in through the nose. And let a big sigh out. And now take a moment to let your breath come back to a natural and effortless rhythm. And notice how you feel. Notice where the breath moves in the chest. And notice if your body has anything to say. And as you're ready, slowly open the eyes, bringing the awareness back into the room. Thank you all for joining me in that little breathing exercise. We love to take a moment to focus on our nervous systems and practice things that we're going to be asking our patients to do that support their health outside of the pill box. And we do these calls every month as a way to reach new people, connect with other providers, other pharmacists. We do invite other professions to join the call to help us with our interdisciplinary discussion. And we try to center the calls each month around a book, something that's going to either teach us about entrepreneurship or business, or give us some good clinical pearls. And we're releasing the book list on this call, so I'm going to drop that in the chat right now. And this year's book list grew organically out of last year's conversations, plus recommendations from authors and colleagues that we've connected with personally. And it's going to feature a strong mind, body, and metabolism theme. And we've got topics from trauma biology and chronic pain to hormones, thyroid health, obesity, and the social roots of distress. Many of our featured authors are pharmacists, and we intentionally did this to highlight the ways that pharmacists are leading in education and advocacy and root cause healing, and to highlight things that we can do beyond our traditional dispensing roles. We've already got several of the authors confirmed to join us live so far in February, June, and September. And we hope that we're going to have more of the authors joining the calls live. And we've still got lots of additional invitations that are pending. So I hope that we'll be having more authors join us throughout the year. So February next month is Donna Bartlett. And do check the chat. I've given you the whole list there, and we'll be sending that list out with some short descriptions of each book as well. But I want to highlight that next month is Donna Bartlett. She wrote MedStrong, and it's a book about deprescribing. And she also has a workbook that goes with it. And the workbook is a phenomenal tool. I cannot wait for you guys to get this in your hands and get excited about the resources that she's given you to help patients advocate for themselves in getting a smaller list. So very, very excited about February. And do we want to have some discussion, or do you want to give some of your updates, Lauren, before we dive in? I have some fun, hopefully engaging questions to ask our audience today to get us all talking, but I want to see if you have any updates.
I'll save my updates for the end. I am super excited for this book list. I have not even seen this book list yet, so I am like, oh my goodness, so excited. There's some really, really good books on here. Some that I've read, some that I haven't, that have been on my list. So yeah, it's going to be an amazing year.
Okay. Well, we didn't have a book this month because we're kind of structuring the organization around the seasons, and spring is really the new year. And so we wanted to take the month or the winter months to rest. And so that's why we chose not to do a book. And I want to know, looking ahead at this book list, which of these books feels aligned with this idea of seasonal living, listening to your body and your body's timing?
And feel free to put it in the chat. And then if anyone wants to actually come off of mute and also just share like verbally what comes to mind, just feel free to like pop off of mute and start talking. I don't know that Zoom has, or Google Meet has a raise hand function the same way. Actually, yeah, it does. There is a raise hand button at the bottom. So if you want to use that, it helps kind of cue people up. But otherwise, feel free to just hop right off and yeah, share again. Do you want to read the prompt one more time for us?
Yes. Looking ahead at our book list, which book feels most aligned with the idea of seasonal living and listening to your body's timing? And I think Deborah had her hand raised.
I was just playing, sorry.
Okay. Well, since you're off mute, do you have anything to add?
I typed it in the chat, the listening to your body. I thought by Joanne Hari.
Looks like Listen to Your Body is Dr. Sharapova. Is that one of the Mindshare authors?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Yep.
sorry, I was scrolling and trying to read at the same time. I don't possess great talents.
Oh, good. Yeah, so Veronica and I are part of a organization formerly called Mindshare. The new name is Health Business Growth Collaborative, or HBGC. It's run by JJ Virgin, who is a CNS nutritionist. She was on the Dr. Phil show for many years, but she is essentially a functional medicine practitioner and nutritionist and amazing entrepreneur and woman business leader. So she has an organization that has a mastermind in it, as well as a live summit that happens every year in the fall, and a couple other programs for helping people start new income streams or optimize their business. So Veronica and I specifically are participating in the Optimizer program this year for FMPhA to help us in our year of expansion and scaling our state chapters and all of these amazing things that are part of the updates that I'm sharing, I think just organically because it came up in discussion. But one of the cool things is that last fall, when we went to the summit out in Scottsdale, Arizona, there are so many incredible practitioners who also have written books. I myself have written book chapters and got to be on the author's row at the Mindshare Summit, where people have their copies of their books and they autograph them and they give them out to people. So almost everybody has a book, it feels like, at Mindshare, and that's just because that's one of the things that they will help you do. Like if you want to write a book but you don't know where to start, they literally have step-by-step programs and connections to publishing companies and like all kinds of things in the Mindshare community on how to publish a book. So we got this idea as we were meeting amazing authors, why don't we have them in our book club? So Veronica's done an amazing job of selecting a few different books from the Mindshare community, and hopefully we'll be able to have some of them on as our guests as well. So yeah, I'm just super excited about that. And you guys will hear more about Mindshare / HBGC over the year. We are trying to partner with the organization to sort of help bring more pharmacists into it, as we do with every organization that we partner with. It's always about how can we create win-win scenarios? How can we introduce more pharmacists into this community of, multidisciplinary practitioners, right? There's everyone from physicians to health coaches, all types of people that are part of Mindshare, but not a ton of pharmacists as usual, right? Like we show up to these places that are supposed to be multidisciplinary, and there's like me, Josh Rumini was there one year. He's based in North Carolina. Isabella Wentz, who's on this book list, is the thyroid pharmacist. she got her start launching her thyroid pharmacist brand in Mindshare. So like if you have ever had the thought, I want to be the next thyroid pharmacist, Mindshare is the place for you. It's like a referral process though. Like not everyone just gets to get in, especially for the actual mastermind. So if it's something you're interested in, send me a personal message so I can make a personal introduction to you, to the ecosystem, and to the world. That was how I got in. I had an amazing doctor named Jennifer Landa who we connected at an A4M conference, and she's like, I think you would really like Mindshare. I was like, what's Mindshare? And next thing I know, I'm on like a one-on-one call with JJ Virgin. Like, it's wild. Just how quickly your worlds will all collide and connections will be made. So just planting some seeds there for now. Like I said, you don't need to write any of this down or worry about any of this right now. It's just sort of giving you a little bit of backstory on how some of these books came to be and what's coming in the future of this year and all the things. So
that reminds me, I have 2 copies or 2 books from our list, and I have a free copy that the authors gave me to give to our members. So we're going to be mailing those out in the next few months. We'll just do a random draw. So if you're not a member and you've been thinking about it, please become a member, because we are going to draw at random one of our members to receive, not both books, like we'll do 2 different members. We have a copy of The Biology of Belief. No, sorry, wrong book. The Biology of Trauma. And Pain Free on Purpose. The authors gifted us copies of their books to give to you guys. So make sure that you're a member so that you can be part of that giveaway if you're interested in a hard copy.
amazing. Does anyone else have a book that jumps out to them about seasonal living? And first of all, does everyone understand what we even mean by that term? I'd love for people to kind of share their own experience. What does it mean to you when you think about living aligned with the seasons or working with your body's timing? So Kelly's comment, October and November sound like great topics and really timely with the seasons. Yeah, I think that's actually a great one. I don't know if you did that on purpose, Veronica, but Kathy Campbell's book in November is on obesity, the modern famine, which of course is typically when in America we start our holiday treat time and all the food, right? I think that one is very...
I set that one in November because of Diabetes Awareness Month, and a lot of Kathy's content I think is really helpful for people that are working with insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and even managing type 1 diabetes. Like, all of this information is really good for optimizing your other hormone pathways. Since you know you can't make your own insulin, we need everything else to be signaling well. So absolutely. Yes, that was intentional. I tried to be intentional with where I plug these books in, and some of them just got slotted with where the authors said, hey, this is when I'm available. So they got plugged in there too.
Beautiful.
Do we feel complete on the season? Any comments to bring up on seasonal living?
Yeah.
I do have another question prepared. If that one.
Victoria's comment said, I'm excited for the biology of trauma. I know personally as I get older, I've leaned into living by the seasons. I read Wintering, and it made me recognize the importance of living with the seasons. I've not read that book, so I'll have to look it up.
I haven't either, but that's the 3rd time it's come across my nose, so that means I need to read it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
I think it's wonderful. I've read it twice, actually. I read it long ago, like 2020-ish, and then I read it again recently. Yeah.
Okay, I need to write that down, as maybe that's on our list for next year.
Yeah. Sounds like our unofficial January book.
Okay.
A book they want to happen to right now. Joseph asked, is seasonal living a functional medicine thing? So I would say, in a sort of roundabout way, yes, there's a big focus in functional medicine around energy in general. And if you really think about also connecting with nature and the seasons of nature, our bodies also go through seasons of life, if you kind of think about that. And I know for me personally, as I started to get more in tune with living closer to the earth, that phrase or that concept really is more about thinking about, what type of food grows seasonally. If you're getting fresh berries in the middle of winter, where did they come from? Because I live in Ohio normally. I'm currently living in Weewahitchka, Florida. Again, because I know in my own body that living in the cold winter months constantly put me into this seasonal depression, this seasonal affective disorder. A lot of that, has to do with the fact that in nature, winter is a time for hibernating. It's a time for kind of storing your energy, right? And not necessarily go, go, go all the time. So when we think about living closer to the earth, living closer with the seasons, it's how can we eat food that aligns more seasonally? Whenever you're eating something that is seasonal, right, it's going to be fresher, it's going to be more local. You're connecting with local people potentially even, right? If you think about going to a farmer's market as opposed to just going to a grocery store, it's a totally different experience, right? And it's not to say that you can't have local food from a big grocery store, right? I worked at Walmart for 12 years. It was a huge initiative that Walmart as a company was doing to try and bring in as local of food as possible. So there was signs posted anytime that we had locally raised greens, right? From Cincinnati, Ohio, or like wherever it was. So even big companies are recognizing the value of local food, seasonal produce, right? And kind of leaning into that. Now there's a flip side of that, which can also be the commercialization, right? In America, we think of seasons, and a lot of times it corresponds with holidays, like Hallmark holidays. Like seasonal means Valentine's Day and buying lots of chocolate, right? Like there's so many different ways you can look at seasons, whether that's through the lens of holidays and celebrations or through the lens of what does nature have to say about the season of life that we're in. Veronica said, introduced to seasonal living through a class on Ayurveda. Yeah, so Ayurveda is an ancient 5,000-year-old Indian, like from the continent or the country of India, practice. And they really look at just 3 seasons, sort of in terms of the types of energy. And there's more of these transitions in between. So it's different everywhere in the world, right? That's something completely different. Like in India, they have mangoes growing like all over the place. That's not something we have in Ohio, but mangoes are like my favorite fruit on the planet. So where does my mango come from? Like these are the types of questions that we start to ask and we start to think about through the functional medicine lens, because everything that we put into our body matters. Food is information, it is connection, it is nutrients, it is energy. So how that food was raised, that plays into the nutrients that are in the food. Was it conventional? Was it organic? All of it is connected and all of it matters. So
I thought it was interesting. Can you hear me, Lauren?
yes, absolutely.
I thought it was an interesting topic because I was thinking about this actually earlier this year when my cat started changing her coat, and I noticed she was eating differently and like getting ready for winter. And I was thinking about that. We don't think about us humans as kind of changing for the winter, but then I was thinking about all the physiological changes that need to occur for winter to survive, and then thinking about methylation and thinking about hunting and thinking back to like when we lived more of a, hunter-gatherer kind of diet, we were probably eating a lot of organ meat to kind of, because hunting is usually what happens right before winter. And so I was thinking about that in terms of all the methylation that's going on. You're supporting all that methylation to do all those changes to get ready for the winter. And I was wondering if there was a lot of functional medicine kind of research into that. I'm a professor at Concordia University of Wisconsin, and I study environmental health, but more recently I've focused on nutritional health and kind of like researching novel metabolic pathways that can be deranged in different people. And it all kind of stemmed from my mom. She had a lot of health, essentially almost every chronic illness. And I was trying to figure out like mechanistically what was going on. And it led me into this whole kind of merging the different omics and looking at different genetics. And so I have my whole family's genome sequence, and I've been looking at polymorphisms and how they affect function and the interaction between nutrients and these polymorphisms. And so that's kind of where I was thinking functional medicine is a nice kind of area for me to collaborate with people on, because it's kind of seems to be trying to get at a lot of these same things that I'm trying to get at. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds incredible. That's exactly what it's all about. It's really bridging what I feel is like the gap that we have in conventional medicine and some of these more, ancestral, paleo, some of these different terms that have come around, but then also the cultural piece, I think is another part. If you look into things like Ayurveda or traditional Chinese medicine, I call Ayurveda the original functional medicine. I learned about it through my yoga teacher training last year. And, it is so personalized and so individualized. And in some ways, it's very different than functional medicine, in terms of they do specific food combining, and some of the things that they would say are kind of the opposite of what modern functional medicine says. So then, it kind of brings in that discussion point of, the cultural competence that I feel like, at least when I went to pharmacy school in 2013, that was a very big topic of discussion that came up in every module, is like, how would you counsel a patient with diabetes who is Hispanic? It's probably going to look different than how you would counsel a patient with diabetes who is just a typical American diet, right?
Well, like what you just brought up is really fascinating to me. So when I was a pharmacist, I was also getting my PhD. So I worked while I was getting my PhD, and was really kind of insightful into like watching people's behaviors and stuff. And so when I think of Hispanics, I always think of the three sisters. So the three sisters, were corn, beans, and squash. And if you notice, we eat corns and beans, but they forgot the squash, right? They forgot the vitamin A containing sister. And so like in our diet, I think that's a huge issue with Hispanics, is not incorporating that sister into their diet. And so like in my work too, now what I'm finding is that these novel metabolic complexes are getting formed from our nutrients. And so it's difficult though, because this is all novel work. So I'm trying to elucidate the structures of these compounds and stuff. But what I'm finding is, there's these complexes getting formed with like things like retinoids, and they're forming these more complex kind of like nutrient complexes, I'm calling them for right now. But yeah, so I think that's a huge piece, is that, we've kind of skewed the way we used to do things, and ancestrally we did that too. And so like, it's like a highly, like right now they're telling everybody to eat a lot of protein, right? And like most of my life I've been obese, and most of my life I've eaten a really high protein diet and a low carb diet. But what I've found in my work is that a lot of people carry polymorphisms, amino acid metabolizing enzymes. And so when you eat a high protein diet and you have these polymorphisms, you're actually creating like free radical generating and oxidatively damaging generating metabolites. And so like, that's what I'm doing in my lab, is like tracking those polymorphisms down and then starting to look at the generation of those metabolites. So for example, one really easy, quick thing you can do is, there's a polymorphism that's very common in phenylalanine metabolism. The enzyme is called HPD. And if you take your urine, if you urinate and you leave it out, I know it's gross, but if you leave your urine out, it'll actually turn brown if you have this polymorphism. And so it's a really easy way without even having to, do any expensive testing or anything to identify that polymorph. So that's what I'm kind of working on. And so like this semester, I have a project with my students, and so some of them are sequencing their genomes, and then we're walking through these polymorphisms. We already identified another student has severe diabetes, and he has a polymorphism in tryptophan metabolism. So it's kind of so it sounds like, yeah, like what you guys are interested in doing aligns kind of perfectly with what I'm interested in. But I don't know a lot about functional medicine, and that was never a thing when I was in school. So
Yeah, I think it sounds exactly like what you're working on. It's putting a name to this really broad, interconnected concept. So sounds like we all need a field trip to your lab. Sounds very exciting.
well, that was one of the reasons I wanted to join in with you guys, because so my vision for this is that I create these tools, and then practitioners like you guys can execute these tools, because I can't obviously do all this by myself. So as I identify the novel tools, because my mom was essentially dying about 20 years ago. She passed recently, but she had 3 heart attacks in a short period of time, and none of the drugs were working, and she had an unidentified autoimmune disorder. And so I was trying to figure out, like, what can I do to, intervene in this? And so we essentially exhausted all the normal pharmacotherapy routes. And so then I started tinkering with nutritional hypotheses I had, and then looking for biomarkers related to that. And that's kind of how it was the genesis of it. But she lived like several decades almost after having that string of heart attacks, and so I knew what I was doing was helping, but I'm just trying to get it, nail it down a little bit better and try to identify these pathways a little bit more succinctly. But interestingly, there's a really bad pushback against this, because my original work with environmental health and looking at metabolism was I developed a CYP450 phenotyping tool where you can take a cocktail of probe drugs, and then instead of predicting their metabolic phenotype from genotype, which can be up to 50% erroneous, this gives you the phenotype in real time. So I approached the FDA with this, and it costs a lot of money to do that. It's like $40K just to talk to them, essentially. And so after doing that, they said that I had to have a use case, like one use case. And as you guys all know, in pharmacogenomics, we have lots of use cases for, CYP450, phenotypic changes in pharmacotherapy, right? So they were going to make me actually use one use case. I could only use the diagnostic for one specific drug when we already have genetic tests out there that people are using for lots of different drugs. So there's a really bad push, I think, in mainstream medicine against things like this, because we are trying to get at the heart of things. And so that's what I was kind of looking for, community and support, because it's been rough, even within my own university. A lot of people, I get a lot of pushback but I just recently did a study with an exercise physiologist at Concordia, though, and so he is more amenable to this kind of stuff, because he gets the same kind of pushback, even though exercise is, more beneficial essentially than almost all pharmacotherapy for most chronic illnesses. So
Absolutely. I totally agree with Veronica. You are definitely in the right place. So welcome.
Yes, we are glad you're here. And
thank
I'm
you.
sure that we have lots of resources to help point you to too, where like neurobiologics. I'm just thinking like they need to talk to him. Just had a call with him the other day.
Yeah, it's hard because I'm just a small lab. We're a small, we start off as a preacher-teacher school, and so we have a small pharmacy school. And so a lot of this work I do, just with my students and but I started a company to launch a nutraceuticals to like help with this process, to help fund this research and things like that. But I don't want to launch any of the nutraceutical stuff until I have a better handle on exactly, because I'm kind of sick of, like we all are, of people putting out products and then trying to optimize their product while it's on the market. So I'm trying to nail down, like right now what I'm working on is identified a novel complex that helps DHA get taken up into cells, and so I'm delineating that like a little bit. When I'm positive of the structure, then I'll roll out the nutraceutical for it. So.
Very cool. Well, we're all excited to stay connected with you. So be sure and drop your LinkedIn or email so others on the call can connect with you. So I have another question for you guys. Is which of the upcoming titles do you think will challenge how you currently think about the mind-body connection?
I'll answer this one. Our December book, The Holographic Universe. That book might blow your mind. Glad it's at the end of the year. We have lots of things leading up to it. I'm really excited to see it on this list. And I literally was reading it last year or the year before, listening to it on Audible while I was on a flight to the PLMI, which is Personalized Lifestyle Medicine Institute, run by Jeffrey Bland, father of functional medicine. He founded IFM and then grew it and scaled it into the amazing organization that it is today, and then went off and started another institute that he still is more involved with on the day-to-day side of things. And he gets up on stage, and literally the first words out of his mouth were, "We are living in a holographic universe." And I was like, Jeff Bland just said it. Like, my worlds just collided. This is crazy. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, that book definitely is a very interesting mind, body, spirit sort of consciousness perspective shifting book. I think my second pick would be Molecules of Emotion. I haven't actually read that book yet, but it's been on my reading list as well.
I'm super excited to introduce that book to the group because it rocked my world, and I wished I had read it as part of my pharmacy school education. We don't learn about Candace Pert. She was the one that discovered the opioid receptor, and we never learned her name. I think that's kind of a big deal. And her work in pioneering psychoneuropharmacology and psychoneuroimmunology is just amazing. And she's not a woman that we hear a lot about unless you're taking some rabbit trails, and her work is just phenomenal. So if you haven't come across her, she's no longer living. So that's a bummer that we can't invite her to the calls, but I'm really excited to introduce you guys to her work and her ideas, because it's just a really amazing way to think about how our thoughts inform our biochemistry and create our biochemistry. It's just really, really cool. And some of her early work with peptides, I don't think I fully wrapped my brain around it. And so now that I've been more immersed in some longevity circles and learning, I did a peptide mentorship over this last year. And so I want to reread that book with fresh eyes, since she was kind of a pioneer in peptide medicine too. Oh, it looks like I need to send the book list again. Okay, I put the book list again for anyone who came in late. Ashley, we're glad you're here. But I would love to hear if what books you guys are excited about in terms of mind-body medicine, any of the titles on this list that jump out at you.
That might be another definition that we want to elucidate a little bit, is what is mind-body medicine? How do you define it, Veronica?
define it as just recognizing that the mind and the body are connected and we can't treat them separately. That's how I explain it to patients. It's just that your brain and your body are not separate. And a lot of the things that we can deal with are sometimes our central nervous system being stuck in overdrive and our body's responding to that. And so their experience in their body is real. It's not all in their head. And how do we find ways to calm down the nervous system so that we're sending the appropriate messages to the body?
I think you nailed it, because there's a lot of talk about nervous system regulation right now online, just even in the functional medicine space, in general. But like, what does that really mean? You know, what does that really have to do with things? And I think this is kind of a direction that functional medicine is starting to shift into a lot, because for many of us that go from being traditional pharmacists and then starting to explore things like functional medicine, looking for quote unquote root causes, right? We start thinking about things like the microbiome and, you know, how our gut bacteria influences not just our digestion, but also our brain, right? There's a two-way communication that happens. Our gut produces serotonin. Like, there's all these different connections that these organs are not necessarily isolated. But even if you stop at the level of saying like, oh, well, all disease begins in the gut, that's not necessarily the end all be all. If you really start digging deeper, you might start asking, well, how can two people be potentially exposed to the same, I use the example of food poisoning, right? Or like my husband and I, this is a real story, have gone and had the same batch of oysters at a restaurant, and he gets violently sick, but I'm fine. Why is that? Sure, there could be, you know, a gut connection there. There could be something where his gut is quote unquote leaky, right? Or he's having this response. But really and truly, it's not just the physical gut lining, it's the immune response that is happening there. What is triggering his body to have that reaction to literally like try and get rid of that thing? That is an immune response that is happening where a pathogen was recognized by the body and your body is trying to get rid of it. But what drives your immune system? Stress. Stress is one of the biggest drivers of our immune system. Hormones are a driver of our immune system. Even our own like neurotransmitters and things can be related to the functioning of our immune system, right? They're all interconnected. And so, you know, when we think about mind-body medicine, that's sort of what we're getting more into as well. And, you know, you mentioned Candace Pert in psychoneuroimmunology. Some people call it PNE, other people call it PINE, psychoimmunoneuroendocrine. That pulls in the hormone piece. There's a lot of different names for it, but that psycho piece has to do with the fact that our thoughts can literally change our biology. So I think the Biology of Trauma book will get into that a lot, and I'm glad that book is very early in our reading list this year, because this is why we're all trying to figure out, where is this chronic epidemic coming from of all of these different autoimmune diseases, right? These did not exist to the degree that they exist in today's world. A lot of it is based in trauma. A lot of it is based in what happens to us at an early age or at any point in our life. And in functional medicine, we call this a trigger. So in functional medicine, through IFM, we define antecedents, triggers, and mediators in the disease process. So antecedents are things like your genetics, you know, the environment you were raised in, the types of foods you ate as a kid, like all of these things that sort of set the stage for disease to start happening in your body. Triggers are usually a moment in time that something dramatic shifts, like someone has a car accident and suddenly their health starts declining, or someone gets exposed to some type of toxin or maybe they travel overseas and they do pick up a parasite and they don't know it, right? There's a moment in time that you can almost always articulate. Like my husband and I, when we moved to Michigan for his job, his health started going downhill. And it's because the stress he was under at this job that we changed. Like it was never right since then. So there's trigger moments. And then the mediator piece is all the things that perpetuate that disease cycle and that keep it running and keep it going, whether it's, again, diet or inflammation or the environment you're living in or the job you're still working, right? There's mediators that are keeping that disease process going. So that's just a little functional medicine connection on how we look at the mind-body piece. The other piece too, again, is in functional medicine, we think of like a map or a matrix, which is focused on physiological chemical imbalances, biochemical imbalances. Again, not necessarily by organ, but by process in the body, right? Whether it is cellular communication or detoxification, these are multi-organ system processes. Those are physical though. At the center of the functional medicine process is the mental, emotional, and spiritual. So the spiritual piece is my own personal, like, nerd out part of functional medicine right now, which I really think is, driving from this kind of epidemic of meaninglessness. Like people are just stuck in jobs that they don't want to work anymore, or they feel disconnected. That in and of itself can really drive the disease process too. So that's how I think about mind-body medicine. And yeah, Veronica, Adrian definitely would be a great author to have too.
We can probably just get Adrian and just have a fun call because he likes nerding out with pharmacists. For those of you that don't know, Dr. Adrian Lowe, he is one of the world-renowned researchers in pain neuroscience education. If you look up his name, he's on almost all the papers dealing with pain neuroscience education. He's published well over 100 at this point. And he's a really amazing clinician, author, friend. So we'll have to find a way to introduce you guys to him personally because he's a lot of fun. Ooh, Kelly says, in my experience, treating someone who's spiritually lost is very hard. I would agree.
Yeah, interestingly enough, in the past, it's like how would you treat someone with that quote unquote deficit? And this is where psychedelic medicine is starting to come to the forefront and be in the news, because we're starting to recognize that most mental health problems aren't actually mental at all. They have very little to do with your neurotransmitters and much to do with your emotional state and your spiritual state of being. So figuring out your purpose in the world, your place in the world, what life even means, yeah, it can be quite the awakening for someone. All right, well, I think we have about 10 minutes left. Did you have more questions, Veronica?
I do have more questions, but I want to make sure that you get time to do your announcements. And so maybe I just leave the next question in the chat and you guys can think on that. It can be homework. And then maybe those of us that are in the community, if you guys are members, there's the community chat that we have inside of Kajabi. We can chat about it there. So I will put that last question to marinate on in the chat. And Lauren, please give us our updates for this year.
Yeah, I want to hear the question. I feel like all the questions have like correlated with little updates and stuff, which I always love.
Okay. What myths about hormones or thyroid disease have you heard that you would like to test against the evidence in these books?
I feel like hormones are definitely front and center in not just the functional medicine world, but very clearly in the conventional medicine world, especially with the changes around black box warnings being removed from hormone replacement therapy, right? I mean, these are like landmark decisions being made at the federal level that are drastically shifting the way not just functional medicine pharmacists, but all practitioners are being expected to talk to patients, right? So imagine just walking into work one day and all of a sudden, the way you've been counseling patients for 30 years is now completely gone. What do you say? What do you do? How do you answer questions for a woman coming in and asking you these things? So this to me is what functional medicine is all about. It's challenging the notions of what we believe and what we know and what we understand about the human body and about all of the different interventions that modern medicine has bestowed upon us, right? So obviously we've got some really great books in there. I think The Hormone Secret, that one's going to be really interesting. Obviously, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So when I talk to people about getting started in functional medicine as a pharmacist, Hashimoto's is literally the #1 place that I start, because for most pharmacies, levothyroxine is one of your most commonly dispensed drugs. But how do you talk to your patients about that drug? How many patients do you have who come in month after month and pick up the same version of levothyroxine and have just been told that you're going to be on this for the rest of your life? This is just a lifelong condition, and we just manage it with external thyroid hormones. Versus, I literally found this note in my pharmacy school notes, and I'm like, why didn't I remember learning this? Why didn't we talk more about this? Up to 80% of patients with thyroid conditions can have Hashimoto's that's causing hypothyroid. What is Hashimoto's? It's an autoimmune condition. How do we treat autoimmune conditions? Where do they come from? Again, your environment, your gut, and some kind of trigger. That is what sets the stage for an autoimmune process to begin. So how do we fix it? We're going to learn how in this book, right? There's lifestyle changes we can make. Going gluten-free can make a huge difference for so many patients. We can put Hashimoto's into remission for patients. But how often do we as pharmacists actually have that conversation with our patients? That is what being a functional medicine pharmacist is all about. So how do we learn how to do all of that? I see Joseph has a book that he's showing us.
Lauren, this is what they consider like the Bible for clinical endocrinology for thyroid management. And in here it says, it literally says, do not treat the symptoms, just treat the TSH. I have it. I can't find it now. Like I bookmarked the spot where it says that though, but it says that you should not treat the symptoms of hypothyroidism. You should just manage the TSH. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, if we think about that too, right? Like I always believe that our modern medicine is coming from the right place in their heart, right? We think that we are iterating on the science, right? And we know in the past, right? I'm trying to think of the specific example, but in the past, we would treat the symptoms of a thyroid patient and just sort of cover them up without actually realizing, like, oh, your TSH is high, right? We need to actually treat your thyroid. If you're just giving someone, phentermine to help them lose weight because they're having trouble losing weight, but really they have a thyroid hormone problem, that would be treating the symptoms and not treating the TSH. But we also know TSH doesn't tell the whole story, right? We need to run a full thyroid panel. We need to look for autoimmune antibodies. That is usually my first recommendation for a patient is, have you ever had a full thyroid panel run? Because that's going to give us so much more information about what's going on and how we can help treat your thyroid condition, right? And then again, it's going to connect to all of these other upstream things and also downstream things. So super important. I think just in the interest of time, if this is all what you're interested in and you're looking to get more involved in functional medicine this year, I definitely want to invite you all to join our alliance. So I put the link to the membership in here in the chat. I'll put it in here again. We have two options. So our regular annual membership, that essentially just gives you access to our learning library that has 30 hours plus of different video content, the types of things that we're talking about today, as well as practical resources you can use to start your own functional medicine practice, to gain access to different tools like labs or supplements, all these sorts of things, as well as discounts to some of our other educational partners if things like certification or CE are of interest to you. We've sort of curated an amazing list of different partner programs and then negotiated group discounts so that you can have access to even more resources at a much lower rate. But if you're also thinking, I really want to make functional medicine my primary practice in the coming year, we have a program called Functional Medicine Pharmacist Bootcamp. We have lots of our graduates that are on the call, as well as our state leaders. And the state leader piece is what I'm really excited about for this coming year. So I've had this vision to create state-specific chapters for years now, and we had a version of them on our older website, but we didn't have a lot of members back then, so they really didn't get utilized as much as I wanted them to, and it wasn't a mobile-friendly website. So since we made the investment to move our website over to the Kajabi platform last year, 2 years ago now, we're finally ready to launch our state chapters this year. So right now, it's a phased out process. The only access comes to our students that have been part of our bootcamp program. And so with that, you're getting all of our training on how to fully integrate functional medicine into your role, how to monetize your services, and how to do that specifically in your own state. Since pharmacy practice is governed at the state level, it's important for us as pharmacists to actually recognize how to build businesses and practices that are in line with that. So we have all of our state chapters that are now built out within the community. And so whenever you join through the bootcamp, then you'll be placed in your state chapter. So my goal for the coming year is to have 20 pharmacists in each state. That number, if you multiply it out, right, across the entire country, 50 states, 20 pharmacists in each state is 1,000 pharmacists. That to me is a number that truly indicates that, yeah, this is a movement. This is not something that's just fringe or woo or, you know, out there. Like, this is significant, and there are pharmacists that are starting to really be the leaders and the ambassadors for this. So yes, our bootcamp officially starts March 22nd because we align it with the seasons. So anyone that wants to join right now, you're just going to get access to your FMPhA member library right off the bat. So you'll have plenty of content to start digging into that way. And then the bootcamp itself is a live 10-week program. You'll also get access to the community as well. So you can kind of get in there and start asking questions and getting to know people before the live coaching itself begins. So this is super early access, right? Like when we talk about winter, we're still in the winter right now. This is for people who just are like, I know that I want to be in here. I want to have lots of extra time, ample opportunity to just start to dip my toes in the water and then be ready to go come springtime with our spring cohort. So that's it. That's a big, exciting announcement, is that our state chapters are finally here from a technology perspective. I'm super excited about it. The other exciting announcement is that Veronica, who has been leading our amazing book club calls for the last year, she's been our director of membership and really helping to make sure all of our members are getting all of the attention and help that they need to be successful. She's also been our partnerships director in helping to bridge that relationship, right, between pharmacists, functional medicine, multidisciplinary providers, the different companies that we work with, from labs and supplements to training programs. She is just amazing when it comes to developing relationships. And I'm really excited that Veronica is actually going to be stepping up this year into our executive director role. So she will be even more forward facing and really just bridging, again, the relationships with FMPhA to all of our external and internal partners and members. So very, very excited for Veronica and super grateful for all the amazing work that she does. I myself, I'm the founder of FMPhA, if we haven't formally met yet. I'm still here, but as you can see, I'm currently living in a travel trailer in Weehawken, Florida. So my husband and I have sort of been on this journey as well in terms of where we're living, what we're doing, and I'm sure there's going to be more exciting things coming with that. But just given the nature of where I am in my own personal life, this kind of makes sense, right? So yeah, I'm just super excited for Veronica to be stepping up in this. This has truly been like a multi-year vision, I think, that is starting to come to fruition as FMPhA continues into this year of expansion. I'm not going anywhere, I'm still going to be here, but there's a lot of behind the scenes work, especially on the technology side, marketing side, all of these things that are my like nerdy passion, and that I will have more time to be able to devote to really helping support FMPhA from the background. So I like to think of Jeff Bland and how, again, he founded IFM. He was the CEO for a very long time, but then he's kind of taken this step back and he's now supporting in a much different way, but still very much involved within the organization. So that's kind of how I see this. It's something that I thought would be coming later down the road, but I'm very much, again, into aligning my life, my work, FMPhA as an organization with the seasons, with the timing of things. And so the timing felt right for this change to happen. So very, very excited. Okay, well, that's all the exciting updates. I saw another question that came in. Should we sign up or wait for it to be launched? You can sign up now. They are open and available to sign up now. It should be working for anyone that wants to go ahead and get in there and join, but there's no rush. There's no like, you have to sign up by this, you know, certain date or certain time or anything like that. It's just if you feel called, if you feel led and you feel ready, then you're more than welcome to go ahead and join us inside the membership or the boot camp. That's probably the only other thing to clarify is if you want to join the membership first, kind of poke around, see what you think, and then join the boot camp later on. All of our members have a little discount code that will be in the area for you to use. So that way your membership just applies right to your boot camp. You don't have to pay two separate fees for that. So, all right. Veronica, anything else that you would like to add? Oh, you're on mute.
I love it. It's going to be my downfall. Thank you for all of the updates. I think you covered it all, and thank you all for the good congratulations in the chat. I hope to serve you well and help support you in all the things that you're doing to help shine a light on pharmacists and how awesome we are and how we can really elevate the care of our patients. So thank you, Lauren, for trusting me, and I look forward to supporting each of you.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. We'll send out the replay for this shortly after the call, along with our book list and all the links of where to find the books. So stay tuned for that and start reading MedStrong so that we can all join our call next month. And we'll see you there.
Sounds good. Thank you all. Stay warm and safe.